everyone can relate to. Okay, so Tendi, the discussion we're going to have today is about this idea of campaigns. What are campaigns? What do they do? Why do we create them? And how that actually helps us manage things better. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at your specific questions. We'll examine that, and then we'll go from top to bottom. All right. So what we'll do is we'll take a big picture look at how a campaign lives in the full context of what it does to support our company, and we'll go from there. Yeah? Okay. All right. Teddy, hit me with your questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, yeah, actually, I would like to really understand about the campaign because I think that's one of our main what's called a project in currently. So, I think this is also better if my team as well have a same understanding about this campaign. So we have the same vision and mission. The first is I would like to ask what is the campaign itself? Why we call that campaign instead of other like initiative or something?
Okay. Why do we call it a campaign? Right. We call it a campaign, Tendi, because what we actually do are we provide services. Okay. So the idea behind this is, why do we not call it a project, or why don't we call it I don't know, why don't we call it a project, let's say, versus a campaign? A project to me has a set end date, right? It's like there's a start date, there's an end date, and that's it, right? A campaign is more like it's like going on forever, right? It just sort of never really ends. What our output is. Actually, you know what? Let me do this, right? Let me share my screen, and I'd like to show you this. I think Bayu actually created this, and I think this is brilliant. This is probably one of the best ways to describe everything. Okay, so let's take a look at this chart over here. Okay. Before we go into the details here, I want you just to see that there's an input and then there's an output, okay? Let's just notice that first, right? There's an input and there's an output. And basically what happens is this, right? There's some input that goes into an SLA.
Yeah.
And services, let's be even more fundamental here. What we fundamentally do here at Bukit Vista is we provide services. We don't sell a product. We don't sell like, you know, AirPods or a marker. We sell something that's rather invisible, Tendi. Right? So we sell like community management services. Okay, we sell like inquiry management services. We sell guest management services. We sell marketing management services. We sell data and optimization services. We sell complaint resolution services. We sell advocacy services. So all these things are services. And the thing to sort of really keep in mind that these services, it's important to have an SLA behind it, because otherwise the service is meaningless. Otherwise, it's just you sell a service, but what should anybody really expect of that service? So that's why there's a service level agreement. We will come up with an idea of, okay, there's a problem. Okay, we're going to use a service to solve this problem. And then we're going to do this service at this particular standard in order to solve that problem, right? So let's say there's a problem. You keep on getting all these messages in your inbox that need to be responded to. Okay, there's a service, inquiry response management services. Okay, so then what do we expect? We expect that these inquiries will be converted into bookings. Okay, we expect that these inquiries will be answered within a certain time to maintain a strong customer relationship. Okay, so those are the two dimensions of what distinguishes that service. All right, so you have an SLA, but an SLA is just an idea, right? It's just a standard. It's like saying that this AirPod needs to weigh, 200 grams and be made out of white plastic, right? But okay, all right, it doesn't mean that everything, it doesn't mean that that's it, right? Just get to me 200 grams of white plastic and my AirPod is done. There's other things we need to consider too. So an SLA is supported by campaigns, okay? And this idea of a campaign is I think it's more like this, right? Maybe it's not the best word for it, but I realized that this kind of came over from our understanding of marketing, because marketing is never done. It's not like you're, oh, I'm doing this and then it ends, right? So marketing has this idea that it keeps on going, it never stops, or it stops, but it only evolves into something else. So that's why we chose the word campaign, to give us an understanding that services should never stop and campaigns should never stop. Okay, so it's supported by these campaigns, and if campaigns are successful on one side, then they produce the result that we're looking for. Okay, so campaigns are created to produce the results we're looking for. Why do we have campaigns? We have campaigns, simply put, because we can work better together as a team. That's the main reason why we have campaigns. If we don't have campaigns and we just say, all right, you remember when maybe Cristianto worked here, right? So you can say, all right, this SLA will be covered by Cristianto, all right? So input is inquiries. Cristianto stands right here in the SLA, and output is he will get results that are answered within 2 hours, at 80% inquiry conversion. Okay, all right. How will he hand off his work, right, during the evening? Don't know, right? Okay. How will we find a new person to do the job if Chris resigns? Don't know, right? It's all within his head. This is why we have campaigns. We have campaigns so that we document what the process is. We make it very clear how to do this. We put all the materials, the training, the learning materials, everything inside, so that ideally anyone, even an intern, should be able to look at the campaign, understand what's going on, learn the skills necessary, and then be able to work on it. So a campaign is actually very fundamental. We have campaigns because we need to work in teams, and we need to be able to delegate. Okay. If we didn't, we don't need campaigns. If we're all just like X-Men or Marvel action figures, right, then we don't need campaigns, because everybody's already an expert in their particular field, and they're going to be on our team forever, right? So no worries. Right? Okay. But there is another side of campaigns. Not all campaigns get results right away. Sometimes we need to pivot. So then we need to start documenting what's happening in the pivot. This is where we talk about fail fast. So, okay, you had an initial idea. You're going to pivot now. What's happening in your pivot? Okay, eventually maybe your pivot produces the result that you need, and then you get to fulfill the SLA. Or what can happen is this. During your campaign, you create a byproduct. Okay, you create something else. Like, let's say, for example, community expert talks. Okay, so we're doing community expert talk. We're trying to get speakers, but we create a byproduct, and that might be a blog post, that might be a backlink, that might be something else. Okay, maybe a relationship. These are all byproducts. Maybe they're not the direct result, but they create a byproduct. This byproduct can actually become an asset. So all the different, let's say, contacts that you have with community experts, all the backlinks that you get from community experts, these can be assets, because you can leverage this and go back and say, all right, every week I'll send an email to all my contacts from Community Talk and ask, would they like to refer us to any of their clients, right? We'll send a referral to them, and we'll ask for a referral back, right? Then the email list becomes an asset. The set of backlinks that you have becomes an asset, because what this does is this can be optimized and then help your SLA again. Right? So that's the way campaigns work, and this is the visual representation of it. This is a little bit theoretical, but we can go into an example in just a minute, right? But I just wanted to show you this first. Okay. Does that answer your question, Tendi, about what is a campaign and what is it used for?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Then this is more clear.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Very good. So let's go to your next question. Go ahead and share your screen, and I'll take a look at it.
Okay, sure. I think the third is when we need to start campaign.
When do you need to start a campaign? Great question. Anytime your SLA is not being fulfilled, you need to
Mhm.
start a campaign. Simple as that. If your SLA isn't being met, then you start a campaign. The reason why you start a campaign versus doing it yourself is because you expect to work on a team, right? So you might, like I said before, you don't really need a campaign to fulfill an SLA if you're doing it yourself. If you're doing everything yourself, um, then okay, then that's fine, right? But who's going to monitor what you're doing? You know, who's going to
Yeah.
keep track of your progress? Who's going to be there for you if you need help with analysis or understanding or figuring out what the pieces are? Nobody, right? Unless you are creating a campaign and document it. So anytime you want to fulfill an SLA, you need to create a campaign. And that works both ways, to start or to improve or to optimize or to pivot. So you go like, old campaign is not working.
Mhm.
I need to start new campaign to try to fulfill that. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Oh, sorry, sir. When this campaign is not working, should we start with new campaign or new pivot?
A new pivot becomes a new campaign, right?
So
Uh,
we can remove the previous campaign.
yeah, yeah. So remember, a pivot is just what we call it. Pivot is a verb, right?
Yeah.
So it means the campaign will pivot means you will create a new campaign that is based on the part of the old campaign that works, okay,
Mhm.
plus something
New.
that is new, right?
I see. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Like the way you made a video is a pivot. Every time you make a video, it's a pivot from your previous video. You include all the parts that work and you'll add new parts because you have an idea or theory or something that indicates by doing this, it will work better, right? That's, yeah, the new pivot becomes a new campaign. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Then the next one is how to manage the campaign well.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh,
Excuse me.
yes.
I'm very sorry. Uh, no. Um, that's not correct. Let me correct myself.
Yeah.
Um, a campaign is supported by pivots, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, a campaign is just the goal. So
Okay.
we don't really pivot away from the goal. We create new pivots to support the goal. Like, let's say, for example, you want to work. Well, ultimately, let's just say this, right? You can pivot everything if you
Yeah.
really want to. You can pivot everything. You can pivot an SLA. Maybe the SLA is incorrect. Like maybe we want to, let's say, it all starts with mission first. Okay, so there's a mission. That part should never change. So whatever
Yeah.
we do should always inspire delight through hospitality innovations that positively transforms guest partners or employees. That should always be the same. Now, to make that happen, we need to provide services at a certain level. So we create SLAs to attempt to do that, right? Okay, in order to make sure our SLAs are actually SLAs, right, we need to put a campaign to it so we can monitor the condition of the SLA. So we know how many times we're succeeding, how many times we're not, and at what stage of that SLA is it being fulfilled. Okay, and then now we're monitoring the SLA. Our pivot is the idea, is the actual thing that we're doing to affect change. Now, sometimes campaign and pivot is the same thing, right? Like I think property quality control, that's one of your campaigns, but it's also your pivot. Sometimes it's not the same thing. Sometimes it could be like, all right, like let's say social media engagement, right?
Yeah.
Social media engagement is a campaign to broaden social media engagement. The pivots are changing all the time, right? The
Yeah.
pivots are okay. Let's use this. Let's use that. Let's do this on this day. Those are the pivots. Those are the actions that support the end SLA. Okay, so I think this is a better way of describing it. The campaign is more of the dashboard of what you're trying to do. Is a history of your activity and also the corresponding results in terms of the data for progress on the SLA. Okay,
Okay. So when, for example, like the social media, when we are want to make the pivot, should we make the card or we just do it uh like that?
okay. The most important thing is just to remember that you need documentation. right? When
Yeah.
you make a new pivot, there needs to be some documentation. You need to write down that you're moving in a different direction. Okay, you can write it, I think, on any number of places. You can write it on the SLA card. Hey, look, this is a very big change. We're going to change the way we try to achieve this SLA by doing this now. You can write it on the campaign card. You can say, okay, social media engagement. This last week we did videos. This week we're going to do videos with interviews,
Yeah.
right? Or you can create a new pivot card and attach it to it. You can do it any way you really want. The most important thing is that you just document whenever a pivot is happening. I would, as a rule, put it at a corresponding level. Okay, so if it's a small change and it's easy, then maybe just put it on the campaign card. Right? That's fairly fundamental. Okay, just whatever. All right. If it also depends on, okay, the thing that this depends on, Tandy, is maybe the size of your group and the complexity of communication that needs to happen.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. So let's say you have, let's say this has gotten really big. You have 6 people working on a campaign. You have 6 people working on social media engagement, because there's social media engagement on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, on the website, on whatever. And then there's offline events that record video and content and bring it and distribute it across all these things. So you have a very sophisticated, complex, let's say, social media program happening, right, with lots of moving parts. Well, then, in that particular case, everyone needs to have a pivot card, right? Everyone should definitely have a pivot card, because if everyone jumbles all their information on the campaign, you as a leader will be very hard to read what's going on. If everyone then jumbles their information back on the SLA, it becomes very difficult to understand, okay? So yeah, habits that get you to where you need to go maybe are not required today. Just like you don't need a campaign card if you're just doing it yourself, right? You need a campaign card if you plan on working with other people. Same with the pivot cards. If you're going to work with a lot of people on one thing, then yes, I would definitely recommend separate pivot cards, so that way it doesn't confuse the information in the activity flow.
Yeah.
But if you have a small team, I think it's sufficient just to put up updates in the campaign card, right? Now, if you want to make a big change, if you want to use, let's say, a different campaign to support your SLA, then that kind of pivot should be on the SLA card, right? You should say, okay, this SLA I was planning to fulfill using campaign A. Campaign A isn't working. We have had no progress in it. So therefore, we're going to pivot to using campaign A2 or A1.1. And then that should go on the SLA card, because that is a bigger story than the campaign story. And the pivot story, you just need to know your stories, right? The big story is the SLA. The supporting story is the campaign. The small story is the pivot. So that's the way that the sequence should be seen.
I see. Okay, thank you, sir. It's clear. And then the next one is how to monitor the campaign, so the campaign is keep on.
Okay, that's a very good question. So you need to, I'll give you an example of that. Here, I'll share the screen with you again. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at how your sequences are connecting here. So right here, you got your external SLAs. You also have initiative topics, which is sort of weird now, right? Because initiatives are, okay, you could say campaigns and initiatives could coexist. You could say that. Initiatives are maybe your ideas, okay? Your ideas of what is possibly out there. So you could do an initiative on awareness, you could do an initiative on training, but this is really unnecessary at this point. It actually just kind of confuses, right? So I'll probably just move this over to the side over here, right? I don't think anybody uses that very much now. So you have your SLAs, right? You have SLAs about cleanliness standard, reducing booking conflict, all this. But I see where you also might have a conflict, because you have many dimensions now, Tendi, and this could be confusing. So you have your SLAs, and this is related to a end output. But then here, you also have different stages, right, of your processes on your campaigns. And you don't have any distribution of how or who is in charge of each stage, right? So who's in charge of inspection? Who's in charge of recommendation? Who's in charge of implementation? Who's in charge of successful implementation? right? So in each of these particular stages, one person is in charge of it. So therefore, it makes it very difficult, Tendi, to distribute this work. It makes it difficult also to delegate this. So what we generally have in other chapters is internal and external SLAs, right? So the external SLA is something that we as a chapter need to deliver. Let me kind of put it from HR's perspective, okay? So HR works on a user journey, okay? It works on essentially this is the user journey, but it's also the SLA. The user journey is the employee at some point is aware of Bukit Vista. The employee is at some point invited to participate on on-site trials. The employee at some point is then invited to become a new hire. The employee at some point transforms, and the employee at some point advocates Bukit Vista. Those are the 5 stages. Okay, for each of the 5 stages, there is one person in charge, or maybe a person and an assistant, right? So there's Kevin in charge of awareness. Let's say RV's in charge of applicants. RV's in charge of hires. Shailen's in charge of employee transformation, and RV and Shailen are both in charge of employee advocacy. Okay, so that's the typical employee journey. So the campaigns here have the same journey, right? So one person will be doing distribution, that's awareness. The other person will be doing applicants, which is part of the chapter ready new hires. And then there's first interview, on-site trial applicants, and chapter ready new hires, right? So each campaign is then broken into a segment of each of the internal SLAs. Okay, so that basically, yes, Shailen's in charge of this, but there's also Shailen's in charge of the campaign. Her work is to make sure this campaign works. But also, there's another person who's in charge of making sure efficiency across each SLA within the chapter. Okay, so that kind of gives it a structure, that's strong, because each particular segment of the journey, one person's responsible for, but each particular journey made into a campaign, there's also somebody else who's also responsible for that, right? So you could do it like this, right? You could do it like I don't know. You could say every program that you plan to do with partners, there's one stage is awareness, right? Who's going to make aware and broadcast it. The other is probably negotiation, persuading the partners to use it and get them into it. And then the next step is, actual, training or implementation. And then the last stage is, I don't know, maybe advocacy.
Yeah. Is it like on the property partner journey, sir?
Yeah, yeah. You might need to think about how to create this for each campaign, sir, right? So let's say you want to do a property quality control campaign. Who's going to be in charge of your awareness? Who's going to do the engagement? Who's going to do the business development? Who's going to, this should be your SLAs. These should be your internal SLAs, okay? Yeah. And then one person then is in charge of doing that. And then your external SLAs, the things that you deliver to the outside, are then supported by your campaigns here.
To the other chapter, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be the way I would consider organizing it. You have a few things right now that need to probably take a careful look at, right? Yeah. One, you're not keeping track of any partner transformations here, right? You're keeping track of the total SLAs, but where's the partner transformation? Right. What's supporting that? How many partners have been transformed? You guys don't know.
I think on the journey, instead of retention, I think can be the transformation, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good start, right? You can consider editing it, and I'll show you how I would do it, right? You just go here, and you could say Tendi, say, should this be retention or transformation? Right. So that's an SLA level question, right? Which is good. So okay. You don't have anyone specializing in each particular segment of those SLAs, right? So who is in charge of actually creating awareness for each of your things, right? Like look at it. You sort of have it right now, but it's each campaign is unique in the terminology, Tendi. Outreach is awareness. Response is engagement.
Yes.
Partnership is conversion. Use services is,
Information.
yeah, yeah, it's transformation. It could be a form of transformation. But you don't have advocacy, which
Mm,
makes each of your campaigns not self-sustaining, right?
like a backlink, sorry. Or
Yeah. You need to think about how to make each of your campaigns advocacy, right? Like,
yeah.
if you're doing something, as soon okay, let's say you did this. Let's say you did the CSC cleaning thing. Okay, you did COVID safe cleaning. As soon as you do the first one, you should think about, all right, how do I create advocacy? I interview the partner and say, hey, look, we just did COVID safe cleaning. How do you feel about your new property? Oh, it's great. Oh, why do you think it's great? Because now I feel more confident. Why do you feel more confident? Oh, because now I don't have to worry about something. What were things that you worried about? And you document this. You take that, you share it so that all the other people in the community can see it. And then they go, whoa, that's cool, right? Now you've made advocacy from the very first moment that you've worked. Now, you don't need to tell people how great COVID safe cleaning is because you have somebody who's already telling other people how.
That's become an asset, right?
Yeah.
Asset.
Yeah, that becomes an asset. Yes, it becomes a byproduct. It becomes a byproduct of your campaign, and,
Optimize the SLA.
and it optimizes your SLA. Correct. Right. That's exactly how it works. But you don't have that built into your campaign structure right now, Ted.
Right.
So that's why you have to drive everything. You're not getting the community to drive things for you. You're driving everything because you're speaking from the Bukit Vista voice. You're telling them from the Bukit Vista opinion why you should do that. A clever community manager will always just get the people. Look at BLM. That's a great example, right? Black Lives Matter. They always just find other people. The leaders never talk at all. If you notice, the leaders are invisible in BLM. BLM has leadership. Yeah, they have leadership, but nobody even knows who they are because they're so good at advocacy. They don't ever go in front of a stage and tell everyone, this is what I think, blah, blah. They find somebody else who's outraged and they interview them and then they spread it out, right? And they interview another person who's outraged. And then it works, right? Because you're not using your own voice. You're using the voice of your community to drive your community. And your community is probably going to engage more with somebody that looks like them, same age, sounds like them, same language, same state of mind. And it works more efficiently, right? So yeah, you got it. That becomes a byproduct, and that byproduct can be optimized then to create a passive result, right? Or maybe even an active result. So yeah, your campaigns are missing advocacy, all of them. All of them don't really have an advocacy component. If you're doing C-Talk, you should do maybe you should record after the session is over. How do you feel about this interview? What was great about it? And then compile all those feedback clips into awareness, right? Why should you do a BVC talk? This is what previous C-Talk people have said. Oh, at first I was nervous and then I thought it was awesome. Great, right? You record all that, and then that becomes your campaign awareness to drive. Like right now, I think Sasha is going out and asking people to do it. But why? Why should I do this? Oh, because this. Well, I don't know who you are. Why should I do this, right? But if I can show you a video of 15 other people who've done it and what they say about it, and they say it's great, I'm more persuaded, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, all right. So you can kind of get a grasp on essentially these campaigns. Yeah, I think they need to probably follow your internal journey. Yeah, they're all the same, right? If you look at them, they all have like this one. Yeah, this one's very simple, right? I guess this one is okay. Total partnership, I understand. This is awareness, right? Contract sent, and this is engagement, I guess, right? Or yeah, but there's no advocacy here either. There's no advocacy. Maybe you can. That would be a great video to see, right? Contract signing video.
Why you extend the contract and then
Exactly. I think I shared that with community before. I shared that I think in a Slack chat. I said, "Do we have pictures of contract signings?" Other property management companies always photograph the contract signing because that becomes advocacy material. That shows other people why they should sign their contract, right? Okay. So yeah, this might require a conversation, I think, with you, Asa and Lilith, to really think about how to structure your campaign so that more correct. And also, you need to keep somewhere an eye on the bigger picture. How many partners are transforming? Is there an SLA for that? There's no SLA for that, right? At all. Even though that's one of the biggest goals in the entire company. There's no how many partners. Yeah, yeah. How many partners? How many partners are, let's say, available? How many partners have been transformed? That's the input output. But in the middle, how many partners are you trying to engage to transform? Right? How many partners are in the process of transforming? There's no measurement of that either right now. So you guys are sort of. This is why I said when distributing the workload between BD and community, there needs to be some balance, right? How many partner transformations are going to come from community? How many partner transformations are going to come from, you know?
Yeah.
You had two, right? You had two advocates that I think the Armadillo was you got from a referral, right?
Yeah.
And there was another one I think back in March from a referral, but since then, you know. Right. Or what are you tracking? So you're not tracking one of the most important goals, and that needs to be tracked. Okay. So yeah, let's go to your next question then, Tendi. Does that answer your last question? How to monitor the campaigns?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But there's more involved in this. Okay. So there's more involved, and what you should also keep track of is you need to see a movie. Okay. You need to see the movie of what's happening here. So let's say there's 50 inspection, 50 recommendation, 36 implementations, 46, 36. Okay. So what I'm seeing, what? Okay. What I'm seeing here is, look at this number, right? Look at the top number, second number, third number, fourth number. This is the way I see things, Tendi.
Yeah.
If I look across an update and there's no movement in the top of funnel, then that means this campaign is doomed, right? If there's nothing moving at the top of the process, there's going to be nothing moving at the bottom of the process very soon. So it's really important at every turn. See, this is not good, right? 37 to 37, you see there's no change. That's not good. Okay, this is strange. This is wrong, Tendi.
Oh, yeah.
37 to 46 is like 9, plus 3. But the reason the math is so important on this one, Tendi, is this is how you monitor campaigns. This is how you know if things are going well or things are going to get stuck. First thing is this. If there's no movement, that's bad. Simple as that. If there's no movement, something is wrong. If there's no movement at the top of funnel, there will be no movement in the bottom of funnel. Right? If you don't eat, you won't poop. Simple, right? If you don't eat, you won't poop. But you won't digest food either, and then you won't live as a result of that. So, okay, you need to have top of funnel activity. If something is not moving in terms of the absolute number, it means something is stuck. Right? Now, thankfully, you don't have anything that's stuck. Everything is always moving. You see your numbers are always moving at every level. So your campaigns are organized well. Okay. If you need to also have some expectation within a campaign, Tendi, of how much movement is going to happen every week. Okay.
The SLA.
It can be a mini SLA.
Mini SLA.
It can be just your weekly expectation of how much activity is going to. Now, you don't necessarily need to do that unless, let's say, you are having a lot of problems with a campaign. Okay.
Yeah.
Then, if your campaign is lanchar, then why measure that? That's unnecessary. But if your campaign's stuck and it keeps on getting stuck, then maybe you need to measure more detail, like what's the daily progress, what's the weekly progress, and that's so that we had to do that in HR. There was almost no progress on awareness at all for weeks. So we started wondering what was going on, right? Why is it so tough? And we realized, the person who's supposed to bring awareness wasn't really doing their job very well. So then, okay, we need to have some expectations about what a good job means. So we set weekly targets. Okay, that's how you can monitor your campaigns. You have weekly expectations. How many inspections per week do you expect? Right? How many? You can make it even more simple than that. You can just be you guys do updates what, twice a week?
Once a week.
Once a
Uh,
week, right?
the update is twice.
Okay. Then you can just say how much changed from the last update. Right?
Hmm.
You can say, all right, we expect on this campaign that there's going to be 4, 3, 2, and 1, right? 4 new inspections, 3 recommendations, 2 implementations, 1 successful implementation on every update. Did we achieve that goal or not? This is where you need to get into pivots. If you don't achieve the goal, you need a pivot. You need to come up with a plan. What's your new hypothesis? How are you going to creatively problem solve this? Okay. If you can't come up with a plan, then at least have a documentation and data, and then invite BI to come and take a look at it, and they can come up with a plan for you. Right. This is why we need a campaign again, because otherwise it's impossible to understand what is the fundamental problem. Right. You can ask people, "Oh, my campaign's stuck. I don't know what to do," but nobody can read your mind. So you have this whole structure gives you 2 options: come up with your own pivot, or create really good documentation so that others can look at it and understand. Okay, I think you're stuck on this level. Have you tried this yet? Have you tried this yet? Have you tried this yet? If not, then I recommend you to try these 3 things, and come back after 2 weeks and let me know how you do. Right, so that there can be others that can help you with your pivots as well. Okay. All right. But in general, to read these cards, you want activity at every level. That's a healthy campaign. If if one part of the campaign is stuck, then that means something is wrong, and you need to take a look at that. Okay.
So the actionable should be the strategy for the states that actually there is no progress or stuck, right? The
Yeah.
action plan. So
Yeah.
I think that's the what's called the more makes sense if we create the action plan, not like for the states that are going well, like that, right?
Well, depends,
Oh,
Tandy. Right?
if,
It
if
really
you want
depends.
to improve it, yeah.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if you're doing well on something,
Mm.
if let's say you're really good at awareness. You're really good at awareness. You generate 10x awareness every month. This this month 1,000, next month 10,000, next month 100,000. You can then kind of tolerate being bad on the end of funnel. Like this
Mm.
is why a celebrity can kind of be an asshole. A celebrity can be an asshole because they have so many people who love them, even if a few people don't. It's okay, right? They have new fans every day. Is it okay in the long run? No, because it's not good, right? That's something you should probably work on. You should probably work on, making as many people happy as you can, right? If it's not too much effort. So this is, and where should you resource yourself? That's a question as a leader. Where should you resource? If I resource, let's say I have to add an intern. Should I add an intern to where I'm doing very well, or should I add an intern to where I suck? Well, it depends, right? Like if you do believe, let's say the thing that sucks is your conversion. You're converting only at 50%. Yeah, sure. It would be better if you could convert at 75%. But if you can put that intern into awareness and get 300% improvement in awareness,
Mm.
then you can still accept a 50% conversion, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, whatever, right? So that is more of a strategic decision, Tendi, on where to focus on. If something is completely stuck,
Yeah.
right, there's no movement at all, let's say in the bottom funnel, then yes, you need to fix that right away, because there's no point in getting any more people in if nobody's getting out. All
Yeah.
right. So that is definitely true. So so yeah, it's case by case. You're going to need to ask questions. If you don't understand, you're going to need to take a guess. But you need to visualize the flow in your mind, Tendi. You need to think of it as a process, right? Stage A, stage B, stage C, stage D, right? Ideally, every stage needs to be moving, like the line in a vaccine, like the line at a vaccine place, right? People come to stage A, then stage B, then stage C, then stage D. So ideally, everyone should be moving. If, let's say, one stage gets stuck, no good, right? Let's say, for example, the needles, they run out of needles. So then what everyone just gets packed into the waiting room, waiting for the vaccination, right? Let's say they do registration, waiting for the vaccination, and then they go, right? They go home. But let's say, like the bus that's going to bring everybody home is gone. So now you have everybody just sitting around in a parking lot. Or let's say the doctors all went on lunch break. So there's nobody giving vaccines. So then that stage is stuck. So as a campaign manager, you need to be able to see that. You need to be able to see something stuck here. Because that's stuck, nothing else can move through my campaign. Okay?
Okay, basically the progress of the stage, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in this particular stack right now, what I don't see is nobody's building expertise in a particular skill, right? Nobody's building expertise in how to drive awareness. Nobody's building expertise in how to drive conversion, right? Nobody's building expertise in how to drive transformation. So you don't have really any experts or any like everyone's just focused on a campaign, which is okay, but campaigns eventually get stuck, Tendi, because somebody doesn't know, why is my awareness not working? Why is it I'm reaching out so much and nobody seems to be able to help me? I'm so stuck on that. Well, because there's no subject matter expert on how to do awareness really well. In fact, if I'm stuck on awareness, I don't even know who to go to, right?
Yeah.
So you might need to think about dividing those into skill expertises, skill domains. Who is the best person in your chapter to work on awareness? Who is the best person in your chapter to work on, these particular things? They're different skills. So somebody should be, let's say, an authority on those skills. The campaign is a mission, right? Just like when you go on a military mission, you bring 3 people with rifles, you bring 1 person with a machine gun, you bring a medic, you bring a radio person, and you bring a person that has a grenade launcher, right? That's your 7 people that you have on your team. So medics, normally when they go back to base camp, they hang out with all the other medics. The machine gun people hang out with all the other machine gun people, right? They learn how to perfect their machine gun skills with people who are like them. But when they go on a mission, they mix together. That's generally the idea behind SLA and campaign.
I see. Okay, so I think the last, so is it the campaign that do that?
No,
or
campaigns,
no? Yeah. Because it's continuously.
Campaigns never end. If campaigns end, that means that the only way a campaign ends is an innovation. We realize either we don't need this service anymore, or we're not doing the right thing to support the service. It needs to be innovated. That's the only way a campaign ends. Pivot cards should have an end date. Pivot cards should have an end date. How long do you plan to spend on this pivot before either integrating into the campaign or a pivot card is this, Tendi, how long it takes to fix a campaign. Campaign's broken, you need to create a pivot to fix it. How long will it take to fix this campaign? Right? How long will the pivot take? A week, 2 weeks, whatever, okay? So by 2 weeks, can we expect that this segment of the campaign will be lanchado? Yes, good. So then let's see that happen, please. All right, and then that sets very clear goals for that. But ideally, a campaign should never end. A campaign is always flowing. Other goals should end. Like you need to have I think time goals within the campaign though. That needs to be clear. It's not that the campaign doesn't have any time goals. You need to have time goals. I think you should have how much do you expect by a certain amount of time. Right? Like maybe an internal SLA. How many outreach do you expect per week for this campaign? 5, 10, 16, 35, whatever, right? You need to have some expectations for that.
Time goal, yeah.
Yeah. They're not time. You need to understand this also. It's not a project, right? It's not like it starts and stops. It's more like flow.
Flow.
Okay? Flow. So you need to kind of think about how much flow over how much time. Okay? Let's say you're running a factory. How many iPhone parts need to pass by my station every hour? Well, how many iPhones need to be made every hour? Okay, 600. Okay, so obviously 600 or more, maybe 615 iPhone parts need to pass by my station every hour. Why? Because not every part will make it to the end of the manufacturing line. Some are going to have defects. Some are going to have problems. So I need to flow. And manufacturing is probably the same thing, Tendi, right?
Yeah.
If you want to see 600 chickens at the end of the chicken processing plant, you need to probably see 615 at the beginning, right? Then you need to see each stage. Okay, so How many defeathered chickens do you need to see? I need to see at least 610. How many gutted chickens do you need to see? I need 605, right? How many finished chickens do you need to see? 604. How many packaged chickens do you need to see? 603. Okay, therefore, by the very end, we will ship 600 chickens because there will be loss at each stage. Maybe not huge.
Like for marketing funnel, yeah, like
It's like a marketing funnel, but for processes,
for posting.
it's much fatter. You don't expect it to like lose so much at each
Yeah.
stage. Marketing, because you have less control, you don't control what's going to happen, right? With people, but in a factory you do. So it's still a funnel. You'll have much more input than output. If you want to make 100 kilos of chili sauce, you probably need to start with probably 110 kilos of tomatoes, right? Or 100 and 1,100 kilos of tomatoes, because there's going to be evaporation, there's going to be bad tomatoes, there's going to be people who are idiots and they knock the tomato out. You need to account for that. So if you want to reach an end SLA, you need to think about, okay, all right, what is the middle part that needs to pass by every hour, right, to get to that goal? So that's your time goals in your campaigns, not a due date. Okay, it's a very different idea. You need to have a certain amount of activity by a certain amount of time, or a certain amount of intermediary result by a certain time. I need to see 5 reach outs every day in order to get this many reach outs. Yeah, 5 reach outs every day, 1 engagement, and one booking every 2 days. Okay, so that can be like how you set up goals within the SLA.
I see. Okay. Okay, I think that's very clear, sir, for the campaign. So yeah, since you recorded, maybe you can just share me this the link later.
Yeah.
I will